I'm Dana Collarulli. I've lived on Forest Street for 10 years. You know, when we moved in, we didn't think about the name. We weren't sure of the history, and sometime later we looked up the history of Nathaniel Bedford Forrest, who was the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
In 1953, a year after the annexation of property in the West End from Fairfax County, an ordinance was passed naming the streets going north-south. They had to be named for Confederate generals. And this really was intentional from City Council at that time. They meant for the West End to be named, with Confederate street names to intimidate members of the African American population.
Being a native Alexandrian, I've had to grow up kind of under the auspices of the Lost Cause, seeing kind of relics to the Confederacy widely displayed in our city. Having the city take action to rename streets that were named after Confederate officers shows that the city has evolved.
I think we need to identify some of the street names in our city that really were designed as kind of a permanent protest, if you will, against the civil rights movement and growing political power for African Americans in our city.
We are in a unique point in time where many communities, and frankly this nation, is taking another look at history and how we center communities and individuals that never had their voice talked about.
I'm proud to serve on the City Naming Committee, and the fact that this has happened in our 275th birthday year when we can honor Alexandrians is really exciting. These streets were chosen as an active act of discrimination and intimidation, and we are now acknowledging that and rectifying it with names that honor more inclusive subjects.
A motion by Vice Mayor Jackson, seconded by Councilman McPike, to receive the process for this that the City Naming Committee intends to follow for the renaming of streets named for Confederate soldiers.
I want my kids to understand the great city that they live in, the history of it, and when they walk out the door, I want that to be a learning experience.
I think we have a role as a local government to take intentional action. And we saw a past council do something in a way that was segregationist and negative and harmful. And I think we have a duty and a responsibility to push forth a more inclusive future.
So I think it is very important that we elevate the names of people that here in this community that we would all see as being heroes.
Lieutenant Colonel Charity Early was the highest ranking African American woman in World War II. She broke tremendous barriers, and it's because of her perseverance and courage that we have seen many other women engage in our military.
We're especially proud to have rededicated a name for Thomasina Jordan because she was brought to us by our residents who participated in this process and advocated for her inclusion. She was the first Native American woman to serve in the Electoral College and later resided in Alexandria, where she was an active part of our community.
This is not just about changing the names on a sign, but this is an opportunity for us to learn together and grow together.
We're about almost 160 years removed from the Civil War. We can't just forget. This was done intentionally with a purpose. And this is the reason that we are intentionally changing these names with a purpose. Just because 160 years passed doesn't mean that we should forget.
This is part of a much longer conversation about our history, about reconciliation, about what it means to be an inclusive and welcoming community. And so I see this actually growing into a much larger community initiative where we are engaging in conversations about who is Thomasina Jordan, who is Lieutenant Colonel Charity Early, who are these people and what did they mean to the history of Alexandria? Look up at the street sign and think a little differently about who it's named after.